Hey everyone, welcome. Today we are going to do something really fun. We are going to build a complete 3D game on HatchXR. We are going to build this 3D Pong game on HatchXR. So for those of you who do not know, Pong used to be a really famous arcade game in the early 90s. And the way it works is there is an arena, and in that arena you have a ball. The ball can move around in the arena. Okay, the ball can move around in any direction and it can bounce off these left and the right walls. And then you have two players, one player who is controlling the red paddle here and one player who is controlling the blue paddle here. And the red player can move this paddle left and right. Similarly, the blue player can move the blue paddle left and right. And aim of the game is the blue player has to prevent the ball from hitting the wall behind it. And similarly, the red player has to prevent the ball from hitting the wall behind it. So if the ball hits the wall behind the red player, then that is considered as a goal for the blue player. And similarly, if the ball hits the wall behind the blue player, then that will be considered as a goal for the red player. So eventually, whichever player scores more than 7 goals, that player wins. Alright? And this is the entire code. It's a very simple code of the game. And let me just show you how the game works, and then we can start building this project by ourselves. And the moment I click on run script, you will see the code starts running, and you can see the ball is moving. And right now, I'm not moving the paddles, and you see the number of goals for red player keeps on increasing. So I can move the blue paddle using the left and right arrow keys. And you see, right now, red player scored 7 goals. So it says red player wins. Okay, similarly, I could have made the red paddle move using the Z and the X keys on my keyboard. Alright, so you can have two students or two players actually playing the game. One player can control the motion of the red paddle using the left and right arrow keys, and another player can control the movement of the red paddle using the Z and the X keys. Alright, now that you have seen how the game works, let's start building the project. So as usual, this is the final output of the game, and you will have the completed project link available in the description of the video. But what we have done is you have a template project link available in the description of the video. So we are going to start with the template project link, and when you open up the template project link, you will see the design of the game here. And if you go to the code window, there will not be any code for this project. So we are going to go through how the game is designed, and then we are going to write the code to make this Pong game working. Alright, so let's get started. So once you open up the template project link, you will see a screen like this. And here you have the design of the project ready, and there are some objects on the left hand side. You can see there are lots of objects present in this game here. So let's first understand what are these objects. So you see the very first object here is called paddle blue. Click on the name paddle blue and you will see that it selects this blue box here. So this is called paddle blue, and this is going to be the paddle that the blue player will control. We will code the functionality so that the player who chooses to play with the blue paddle can control the movement of the blue paddle by using the left and right arrow keys. And then you have an object called paddle red. So you see when you click on paddle red, this red box gets selected. Now we will have another player in our game who will be able to control the left and right motion of this red paddle using the Z and the X keys on your keyboard. Alright? And then we have this ball object. You see there is this green ball. This is a small box, and we will code it so that it can move around in the arena on its own and it can bounce off these walls. And then you see we have two text objects. We have a blue scoreboard and red scoreboard. Both of them are displaying the number 0 right now. So we are going to use these two scoreboards to display the score of each of the players. The blue player score will be visible on the blue scoreboard, and the red player's score will be visible in the red scoreboard. And then you see we have 4 walls here. So you have the bottom wall, that's this wall, okay, behind the blue player. All right. And similarly, you have the top wall that's behind the red player. See? And then we have the left and the right wall. Okay. So the ball will be able to bounce off the left and the right walls. And the aim of the game is going to be for each of the players to defend the wall behind them. So blue player will have to defend the bottom wall and red player will have to defend the top wall. And then the entire game is played on an arena. That's this object here. So now that you're familiar with the design of this project, let's go to the code window and let's start coding. Alright, so once your code window is opened, you will see that the code editor is completely empty. And on the right side, you can see your game. So before we start coding, let's first understand the functionalities that we need to code in the game. So one thing that we have to do is make the ball move around. Then second thing we have to do is make the ball bounce off the walls. And then we have to make the paddles move using the left and right arrow keys and make the paddles move using the Z and X keys. So we will make the blue paddle, let's say, make the blue paddle move using the left and right arrow keys and make the red paddle move using the Z and X keys. Alright. And then we will have to ensure that when ball collides with a wall behind a paddle, right? When the ball collides with any of these two walls that are behind the players, then the opposite player will score. So if the ball hits the wall behind the red player, then the blue player will win. And if the ball hits the wall behind the blue player, then the red player will get a goal. So the opposite player will score. So we will have to implement the functionality to count scores for both players. And then we have to add the game win functionality when any player scores more than 7 goals. Alright, so these are the things we have to code in our current game. So let's start with, first of all, making the ball move around. And making the ball move around is very simple. Let me actually open up my whiteboard and show you what we will do. And here, so let me just draw the game that we are building. So we have a ball. We have a ball here. And the ball is in an arena. So we have the right wall, we have the left wall, then there is the bottom wall, and then you have the top wall. Alright. So we have all of these walls and we have a ball here. So this ball, it can move around in any of these directions. And as the ball moves around, it will have to hit these walls and bounce around, right? So how are we going to code this? So see, it's very simple. First of all, let's understand the directions. So in the game, you will see that this ball is not going to be moving in the top direction, right? So we know that the top direction is the Y direction. So we are not going to make the ball move in the top direction. Now, what are the remaining two directions? So we know that in a 3D game, we have X direction, Y direction, and the Z direction. So this is a 3D space I'm drawing here. So we have X, Y, and Z directions. Now our arena, our board, is placed in the X and the Z directions. So the ball will be moving along the X and Z directions, right? So when the ball is moving on the left and right side, it will be changing its X position. So we will be giving it a speed in the X direction. And then to make the ball move forward and backward, we will have to change its Z position. So when the ball moves in the front and back direction, the ball will be changing its Z position. So to change the Z position, we will create a variable that will control the Z position of the ball. So we will be creating a variable called speed Z. And similarly, to make the ball move in the x direction, we will be creating a variable called speedx. And then we can simply create a timer. And in that timer, we can set the ball's x position and the z position to its current x position plus the speedx value. And similarly, for the ball's z position, we can say get the z position of the ball and change it with the speed z value. We have learned how to do this in our previous lessons, and this is exactly what we are going to do to make the ball move in the x and z direction around this arena. So let's implement that functionality first. I'm going to go back to the workspace, and as I said, we are going to first start by creating two variables. I'm going to create a variable let speed x. I'm going to create the x direction variable. Okay, so speed x, and I'm going to set it as 0.1 for now. And then similarly, I can create another variable called speed z and set it to 0.1 as well. You can set it to any value you want. I'm setting it to 0.1 initially. And then what I can do is inside the timer, I will create a timer now. So let's create a timer. To create a timer, all you have to do is ensure that your cursor is in a new line of code. And then you can go to the timer function here, timer, and click on create timer. So you will have a black box that explains what a timer does. You can read it or close it. And inside the timer, we are going to make the ball move. So to make the ball move, what do we need to do? We need to say ball. So the name of the object is ball, right? B-A-L-L, and it's capital B. So you can type capital B, A-double-L dot set x. Set x. We will change the x position of the ball. To move the ball left and right, we will change the x position of the ball. So we will say set the x position of the ball. Set x followed by pair of round brackets. And you can end it with a semicolon. Now inside the pair of round brackets, we will say how we are going to change the x position of the ball. And we are going to find out the current x position of the ball and add the speed x value to it. So we will say inside the round brackets of set x, we will say ball dot get x, okay, capital B A double L dot get, and then capital X, ball dot get x followed by another pair of round brackets plus the speed x value. And let's just keep this line of code here, and inside the timer what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this 1000 to 20. So I'm going to say that move the ball every 20 milliseconds. And let's just run this script. So when the code runs, you will see that the ball moves in the right direction. Yeah? And it's moving in the right direction because speed x has a positive value. If you decrease the x position, if you give speed x a negative value, like minus 0.1 here, and then run the script, you will see that the ball will move in the left direction. So now let's actually write the same functionality for changing the z position of the ball. So inside the timer itself, just the way we wrote set x to get x plus speed x, you can just copy this line of code, select it, and just press Command C or Control C, go to the next line, and press Command V or Control V. And this line, we are going to change all the x's to z. So where it says set x, I'm going to delete the capital X and write capital Z. Similarly, where it says get x, I'm going to delete the capital X and say capital Z here. And similarly, where it says speed x, I will change that to speed z. So now we are saying that inside the timer, change the ball's x position and change the ball's z position. And now when you run the script, you will see the ball will be moving diagonally. So it's moving in this side because speed x is a negative value right now. So it's trying to move the ball by reducing the x position. So the ball is trying to move in the left direction. And then speed z is a positive value. So the ball is trying to move in the forward direction. So the ball ends up moving diagonally left. So now you see what happened is, as the ball was moving, it passed through all these walls. It passed through the arena. right? We do not want that. We want the ball to move around, to bounce around these walls. So first of all, let me just change the speed x value to positive 0.1. So now let me go back to my whiteboard and let's see what's happening. So when you make the ball, so we are giving the speed x a positive value. We are saying speed x is equal to 0.1. And then we are saying speed z is equal to 0.1 as well. So let's say this is the x number line and currently the ball is at 0. By giving the speed x a positive number, we are trying to increase the x position. So increasing the x position will make the ball move in this direction. And similarly, if you give speed x a negative value, it will make the ball move in this direction. Okay, but right now the ball is having a positive speed, so it will move in the positive x direction. Now similarly, if you add another number line here, like this is the z number line, okay? And we are saying that this is the positive z direction. And when you give speed z a positive value, the ball is moving in this direction. So if you give x and z both positive values, the ball will try to move right and forward. So as a result, the ball will move somewhere along this line. But what will happen is, as the ball is moving around, it will reach the walls. Let's say there is the right wall present here. I'm going to just look at one wall for now. And let's say that as the ball is moving, it reaches and hits the right wall somewhere here. So what we have to do is, as the ball hits here, so when the ball is moving like this, it hits the wall, we have to make the ball bounce. So we have to change the direction of the ball and tell it to move in this direction. That is how bouncing works. So let's actually simplify this into a smaller situation. In my code, what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to comment out the z value. Okay, set z, I'm going to comment out that line. So when we comment this out, we are just saying that move the ball in the left and right direction. So when I run the script now, my ball will just move on the right side. So now all I want to do is, as the ball moves to the right side, as it hits this right wall, I want the ball to bounce back. So let's go back to my diagram here and understand what we have to do. We have this right wall here and we have the ball. When will the ball hit this wall? So this is the right wall and this is my ball. So ball will hit the right wall only when it's moving in this direction. So in this situation, the speed x is 0.1. So when the ball hits the right wall, we want the ball to bounce back. So we want the ball to move in this direction. Initially, ball was moving right and then it hit a wall. And once it hits the wall, we want the ball to reverse its direction. So basically we are saying when the ball hits the right wall here, we want the speed x value to become minus 0.1, right? Because moving in the left side here should be decreasing the x position of the wall. So when the ball hits this right wall, to change its direction, all we have to do is we have to set the speed x value to minus 0.1. So let's see if that works. Let's write the code for that. Let's go to the code workspace. And here, outside of my timer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a collision logic. I'm going to say that when the ball hits this wall, then I want its speed to become minus 0.1. So actually, let's first check the name of this wall here. Let me go to the design tab. I have named this wall here as left wall. So let's use this left wall, okay? Don't worry about the names. The names might be different for you as well. I'm just ensuring my cursor is in a new line of code. And let's go to my ball object and click on detect collision with. So detect collision with is the code that will help you detect your ball's collision with other objects. So we are going to use ball.detect collisions with, and then you have, see this box and cylinder here that you can delete completely. Before the comma, you can delete everything. Now here you have to write the name of the object with which you want to detect the ball's collision with. So I want the ball's collision to detect with this wall. And we checked that this wall has the name left wall. Okay, this is the name of the object. So we are going to type the name of this object here. So the name is left underscore wall. So you see, as I'm typing, the code is suggesting me the name of the object that I want to type here. So you can just click on the name and it will fill the rest of the spaces. So now it says ball dot detect collisions with left wall. And then after the comma, there is the input of what is going to happen when the ball collides with this left wall. So here, after the comments, I can write here that speed x should become minus 0.1. Yeah. So we know that the ball moving in this direction had the speed of 0.1, but when it hits this wall, I want the speed to become minus 0.1. So let's see if this is going to make the ball bounce from this wall or not. So when I run the script, you will see that ball moves, and then see, the ball moves, it hit this wall and then it bounced back. And now it's moving in this direction. But now we have not written any collision logic for this wall. So the ball did not bounce from this wall. Okay. So let's reset our code and let's go back to our white mode. So what did we see here? For this wall, when the ball is moving in the positive x direction, to make the ball bounce from this wall, we had to change the speed to make the ball move in the negative x direction, right? We changed the speed x from a positive number to a negative number. Similarly, now what happens when the ball hits the wall on its left side? Okay, this will have its own name. The ball will hit this wall only when it's moving in this direction. So when it's moving in this direction, that is the negative x direction, right? So we have the x-axis. This is the positive x direction and this is the negative x direction. So when the ball is moving in this direction, that means the speed x value is minus 0.1. And when the ball hits this wall, we want the ball to bounce back. So we want the speed x value to become a positive number. So see what's going to happen. The logic that we are going to write is when ball hits any of the left or right wall, if the speed x value is 0.1, then speed x should become minus 0.1. Yeah. And if the speed x value is minus 0.1, then the speed x value should become 0.1, right? See, in this situation, when the ball was hitting this wall, the speed x value was 0.1. So we are changing the speed x to minus 0.1 to make it move back, right? And then similarly, in this scenario, when the ball was hitting this wall, its old speed value was minus 0.1. And to make it bounce, we have to change the speed x value to 0.1 after it hits the wall. What do we see here? Old speed and new speed. Okay, I'm just going to write a table here. So when old speed was 0.1, after hitting the wall, the new speed value is minus 0.1. And when the old speed value is minus 0.1, then after hitting the wall, the new speed value becomes 0.1. Do you see the correlation here? What's happening? The old speed and new speed. What's the correlation between new speed and old speed? Can we write a mathematical equation that can convert old speed to the new speed value? So we can say new speed value is equal to old speed multiplied by minus 1. When the old speed is 0.1, you multiply 0.1 with minus 1 and you get minus 0.1. And when the old speed value is minus 0.1, if you multiply minus 0.1 with minus 1, if you multiply two negative numbers together, what happens? The negative gets cancelled out and you end up having a positive number, 0.1. So this is what we are going to write in our code. So we are going to say that when the ball hits any of the left or right wall, we are just going to say that speed x value will get multiplied by -1, and that will give us the new speed x value, and that will make the ball bounce. So let's write this in our code editor. Let's go back to the Hatch workspace, and here now I'm going to delete this line of code, and I'm going to say, first of all, here you see it says ball.detect collision with, and this only says one wall name. We have to say that detect the ball's collision with any one of these two walls. So actually, let me introduce you to the concept of arrays. Arrays are variables that can contain multiple values together. So it basically can contain a list of values together. So what's happening is, see, when you create a variable like speed x or speed z, and you are saying speed x is equal to 0.1, that means speed x is just storing one number inside of it, and that is 0.1. Similarly, what we can do is we can create a variable that can store multiple values together, and that is what arrays do. So to create an array, what you can do is, just like you define any variable, you can say let and then give the variable name. So I'm going to say left and right. I'm going to store a list that contains the names of these two walls, the left and the right wall. So I'm going to give this variable a name, walls underscore L and R. Okay, walls underscore LR. So this is going to be an array that will contain the list that contains the names of both of these walls. So how do we define an array? We just say let, then the name of the variable is equal to, and then follow it with square brackets. So you write an opening and closing square bracket, and you can end the line with a semicolon. So inside this square brackets, you just have to store multiple values. You can separate the values by comma. So if you wanted to create a list of numbers, you can say 1, 2, 3, 4. So now walls LR is an array that contains 4 numbers, and those numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4. It can contain decimal numbers as well. You can contain 0.1, 0.2, 0.9. It can contain then whole numbers as well, and then large numbers. It can even contain strings. So you can give it your own name, you can give it any string that you want. And so arrays can contain a whole list of values in just one variable. That's the use of arrays. And there are lots of actions you can perform on arrays. We are going to go through those different actions in our future lessons. But currently, what we are going to do is, rather than storing numbers or strings in this array, we are going to store the names of these two walls. So we know that the names of these two walls are left wall and right wall. So since these are names of the objects, I can just type the names of these two walls here. So I can just say walls underscore LR is equal to left wall, comma, right wall. And both of these walls are enclosed inside square brackets. So now whenever I use walls LR, it will mean both of these walls together. Now the benefit of creating this array is that when you say ball.detect collisions with, I can just pass on walls LR value here. I can just say walls LR. So what this will mean is, when ball collides with any one of the objects that are contained in this array. So when ball collides with either of left wall or right wall. So then what will happen? I want to say here speed x is equal to speed x multiplied by -1. This is all we need to do. And let's run this code now and see what happens. So you run the code and you will see your ball is now bouncing off the left and right walls. So now that your ball is able to bounce off left and right walls, let's modify the code so that we can make the ball bounce off the top and bottom wall as well. So let's click on reset. Now, just like we created a list of left wall and right wall, what we have to do is, See, when this ball collides with the top or bottom wall here, then we will have to change the speed z value. So just like left and right walls are flipping the speed x value, similarly, the top and bottom walls are going to flip the speed z value. So here I am going to uncomment my set z line, okay, and I'm going to comment out the set x line. And now what I can do is I can just copy this entire detect collision width and paste it here, just below this. And now here, where it says walls LR in the new detect collision with value, here we can just give the names of the top and bottom walls. But we have not created any list of top and bottom wall. So let's create that list. So I'm going to say let walls underscore top and bottom. So walls underscore TB. See, you can give variables whatever name you want. I'm just giving the variables the names that I know I will be able to remember in future as well. So walls underscore TB is the variable I'm going to create to store the top and bottom walls name in a list. Okay, so I'm going to say walls underscore TB is equal to, then square brackets. Inside the square brackets, I will write the names of the top and bottom wall. And on the left side, I can see the names are top underscore wall and bottom underscore wall. So that's exactly what I have to write here. Top underscore wall and comma, then bottom underscore wall. So once you have written that, you can end the line with a semicolon. And now here in the new detect collision with code here, this is where you can say when the ball collides with the walls TB objects. So when the ball is colliding with walls underscore TB, then speed z will be equal to speed z multiplied by -1. Now let's run the script and see what happens. So right now I have commented out the set x code. So we are only moving the ball in the z direction, and you can see that the ball is bouncing off the top and the bottom walls. So now to make the ball move all around the arena, all I have to do is uncomment the set x line from here. Now when you run the script, see, this line will make your ball move in the x direction, right? And this line will make your ball move in the z direction. This code will make your ball bounce when the ball hits the left and right walls. And this code will make your ball bounce when the ball hits the top and bottom wall. So now when I run the script again, you will see your ball is moving around the arena and it's bouncing around. It's bouncing off each of these walls. If your ball is moving at a very fast speed, you can change the value of speed x and speed z to make the ball move slower. So I can click on reset here, and I'm just going to give speed x a smaller value. So I'm going to give it the value 0.06, and I'm going to give speed z a value of 0.08. Now when I run the script, the ball will move slightly slowly, and you can see the ball bouncing around the scene. Cool. So we are able to make the ball move around and bounce around. So of all of these objectives that we have to implement in our code, we have completed the first two. We are able to make the ball move around, and we are able to make the ball bounce off the walls. So I'm going to end this video here, and we will continue coding the rest of the game in the next part. So see you guys in part 2.